AITA for replacing myself with my twin brother at my in-laws' Christmas Eve party to see if anyone noticed. I am 31 and have an identical twin brother. For a while I've told my wife that none of her family members notice me or care about anything I do on Christmas Eve, but they insist on me attending. She told me that's not true. They genuinely like me and enjoy talking to me, but I know that the only times they've included me had to basically insert myself into conversations, and it feels awkward and unnatural. So I had a wager with my wife. Bring my twin brother Steve instead of me, and see if anyone notices. I purposefully did not prep Steve on anything. He went in completely clueless. He knew why we were doing it and was game. I gave him $20. As I suspected, Steve confirmed that he wasn't approached all night. Nobody could tell he wasn't me, and he admitted he even felt excluded, and he could only imagine how I felt. So this morning on Christmas, I invited Steve to join. Normally, he's with my mom and dad every year as he's not married or in a relationship. They know about him obviously, but didn't know about the switcheroo. That was when I revealed that last night I was Steve and expressed disappointment that nobody noticed and said this is why I stopped trying. Nobody talks to me. My wife drew the line here. She was hoping we would keep this between the two of us as a funny prank. But how can I expect her family to see what jerks they've been if I don't expose it? Steve was fine. AITA for skipping Christmas with my parents since they won't treat me like an adult. I, 27, have been with my boyfriend 33 for almost 2 years now. We will be getting married eventually, but it's not a priority. My mom won't let us share a bed if we come see them for any reason. When we came over this last summer, my boyfriend suggested renting a hotel so we could have privacy and a comfortable bed. It drove my mom nuts that we bypassed her rules. She wouldn't drop it the entire time we were there. She made me promise not to do that again. My boyfriend's mom and dad are retired to Mexico, and they are really chill. So we made plans to come visit them over Christmas. They are not Christian, so they don't really care when they see their son with regards to religious holidays. We didn't tell my parents we weren't coming. My mom asked me at Thanksgiving if I was going to hold to my promise not to stay at a hotel over Christmas. I answered truthfully that I would not stay at a hotel. I am sitting here on the balcony of my future in-laws condo looking at the Caribbean, waiting for sunrise and enjoying the peace and quiet. I made the mistake of going online yesterday, and I saw a bunch of posts from my mom and my sisters about how I was a jerk for lying to them about my plans. I may have been a little tipsy last night because I decided to respond. I said that it was ridiculous of them to try and tell me I couldn't share a room with my boyfriend, that I was keeping my promise by not staying at a hotel when we were there, and that if they planned on putting everything on Facebook, I would be avoiding all visits for the foreseeable future. They took down their posts when people started crapping on them for trying to control me, but some people did agree with them. Now, they are texting and calling to say I was an off for making them look bad. I asked them if they were trying to make me look good with their posts. They stopped for a while, but there were more texts and voicemail this morning. I'm kind of liking the idea of skipping out on the drama from now on, but I miss my dad, and he is blameless in this. AITA for calling my wife unreasonable, for backing out of spending Christmas with my family after my mother rejected her cookie sample. Context: for every holiday, my mother would ask the women in the family, my sisters, sister-in-law, my wife, my female cousins, to send samples of the desserts they planned to bring to the celebration for testing and to see if these desserts could make it to the food menu. My wife has been complaining about my mother deliberately rejecting every dessert sample she sent. So many times my mother has told her that she's being honest and keeping the guest's best interest at heart. Yet my wife still thought that my mother is deliberately excluding her, since 2 of her dessert samples were rejected before. For this year's Christmas, my mother is doing the same thing, but this time, she told every woman who are participating to make a cookie sample and send it to her for testing. My wife took it as a challenge, and to be honest, she worked really hard to make a good sample and sent it to my mother days ago, and the results just came in yesterday. I came home from work and found my wife upset. I asked what's wrong, and she told me that my mother rejected the sample she sent and decided to exclude her baking from the food list or menu for Christmas this year. I didn't know what to say, but she then told me she was backing out of the invitation to attend Christmas with my family. I was stunned when I heard her make the statement. I tried to talk to her, but she said it was done, called her unreasonable. To decide to bail on the whole family over some cookie sample. That's just freaking crazy and quite unreasonable. We had a full-on argument about it, and she stated that my mother caused this. But I told her that my mother is pretty serious and careful about the food she offers to the guests since we are going to have relatives coming from all sides of country. She told me to stop mentioning it. Later, heard her cry, despite telling her that her baking is amazing and people have preferences. That's all. AITA for insisting that her decision was unreasonable. AITA for calling my husband unreasonable, for canceling the holiday trip just because me and the kids couldn't help him in an emergency. My husband and I have been together for 4 years. I have 2 kids, 17 and 19F, and their half-brother is 3 years old. This past week, my husband had an emergency. Dad had a medical emergency and wanted someone to watch our son. He asked my older son and he refused because he was going out with friends. He also asked my daughter, but she locked herself in her room to study. I was at the restaurant with my brother, meeting his girlfriend for the first time. My husband ended up taking our son with him to the hospital, and his mom watched him from there. He came home and was lashing out on everybody, calling us selfish and unfeeling. I tried to explain that the kids were busy, but he told me to get the F out with that bull, because my older son could have skipped the hangout and watched his brother, and my daughter could have watched her brother while studying instead of locking herself in her room. He scolded me as well, but I told him I couldn't leave lunch with my brother since he was visiting town and this was my only chance to meet his girlfriend. He yelled some more than told us that he was canceling the family holiday trip for Christmas this year. The 2 older kids were upset and said it was unfair. I called him unreasonable to cancel the trip and punish the kids and possibly me like that. He refused to discuss it later. Now me and the kids aren't speaking to him, and he's saying, good riddance. AITA for banning alcohol from Christmas. My husband's family likes to drink. Every holiday includes multiple bottles of wine or cocktails. I hate drinking. I have never drank. My father was an alcoholic. I think it's childish if you can't have fun without drinking. This year I'm hosting Christmas for a change. I decided since it's at my house, no alcohol allowed. We are all getting older and it's time to grow up. My husband's sister called to ask what she could bring. She saw a recipe for a Christmas martini that she wanted to bring. I told her about my no alcohol rule. She didn't say much, but must have told the rest of the family. Some of them started texting me asking me if I was serious and saying that it is lame. But I'm not budging. Now, it turns out my husband's sister is hosting an alternate gathering that almost everyone is choosing to go to instead. It's so disrespectful, all because they would have to spend 1 day sober. My husband told me he talked to his sister and we are invited to her gathering, and he said we should just go and stop causing issues. But I won't, it's so rude. Now, husband is mad because I'm making him stay home and spend Christmas with me, but it was my turn to host and I chose to have a no alcohol. They could have dealt with it for 1 year.